Good evening. In the news tonight, efforts by some state lawmakers to get a statewide vote on Indiana's time zones apparently will fall flat this year. And for the first time in more than a year, the world is apparently hearing some of the voice from Osama bin Laden.
In sports, 2 more NFL teams have filled their head coaching vacancies, and Leighton Hewitt was the biggest upset victim on day 4 of the Australian Open.
Newscenter 22 is next. Governor Mitch Daniels says a federal ruling moving 8 more Indiana counties to the central time zone means a higher percentage of residents will be on the same time year-round. He says that a perfect outcome wasn't possible and that the time zone debate took much more time and energy than anyone intended. Although bills have been filed in the legislature for statewide referendums on time, they have little chance of passage. State President Pro Tem Robert Garton has questioned their constitutionality, and House Speaker Brian Bosma says lawmakers should put the entire time issue behind them. So what can we expect when Knox and 5 other counties in southwest Indiana switch to Central Time on April 2nd? First of all, residents of the 6 counties won't have to move their clocks forward, at least this year. In the time, those counties will stay in the same time. Counties now on Central Standard Time move their clocks forward 1 hour to match the time in Knox, Davies, Du Bois, Martin, Pike, and Perry counties. Counties that remain in the Eastern Time Zone will move their clocks forward 1 hour as well. All 92 counties in the state will move their clocks back 1 hour on October 29th. Several companies say they're planning on the expansion of railroads in Sullivan County to meet expected coal mining growth in the area. Executives of Indiana Railroad, CSX Transportation, Sunrise Coal, and Hoosier Energy say changes in the national coal market are prompting renewed interest in Indiana coal. They expect more coal from the area will be shipped as far as Virginia and the Carolinas because improved technology allows utilities to meet environmental standards while burning Indiana's high sulfur coal. Sunrise Coal begins to plan construction of an underground mine near Carlisle in Sullivan County. The mine could produce 1 million tons of coal per year starting in July of 2007. Vincennes police arrested 3 men Wednesday for possession of auto parts stolen from Parco Auto Parts on South 15th Street. Over 25 aluminum transmission housings were stolen from the parts yard. On Wednesday afternoon, 3 men tried to sell the parts for scrap at Doomies on 6th Street. Doomies has been tipped off to the theft and contacted police. 23-year-old Thomas Bland, 24-year-old Jack Wright, and 25-year-old Christopher Arms are facing preliminary charges of receiving stolen property. Police recovered 29 aluminum transmission housings, 10 aluminum motor mounts, and 5 aluminum rims. An Ohio man was sentenced to 4 years in prison in Knox County Circuit Court yesterday. 24-year-old Michael Wheeler of White House, Ohio, pleaded guilty to 1 count of burglary as part of a plea agreement with the Knox County Prosecutor's Office. Wheeler was arrested by Vincennes police in September of 2004 after he was caught breaking into Clark Middle School. Circuit Court Judge Sherry Bittinger-Gregg sentenced Wheeler to 4 years in prison. He was credited for 334 days already served in the Knox County Jail. A Vincennes man escaped injury Wednesday morning when he accidentally drove through a railroad crossing gate on St. Clair. Charles Wilson told police he accelerated when he heard a train coming, but failed to see the crossing gate was down because of the bright sun. He missed being hit by the oncoming train. Damage to the crossing gate is estimated at $300. A federal judge has sentenced a Bloomington man to 100 years in prison for producing and possessing more than 5,000 pieces of child pornography. 41-year-old David Turner pleaded guilty in August. Investigators say Turner used both alcohol and drugs in order to film 2 13-year-old girls engaging in sex acts with a 32-year-old man over a 3-year period. Legislation that would place lifelong restrictions on child molesting convicts has some people questioning what is more important, restricting or reforming paroled offenders. Under the legislation, future child molesting convicts would face electronic monitoring and lifelong parole. Offenders also could be barred from living within 1,000 feet of schools, parks, or youth centers. The Reverend James Mulholland of Indianapolis, a Quaker minister who works with prisoners, says he's worried that stripping parolees' freedoms could discourage them from reforming. Other opponents say the bill is too broad and could banish some parolees from their hometowns. A bill that would create a commission to draw up new maps for Indiana's congressional and legislative districts advanced today to the full House. All 7 Republicans on the House Elections and Appointment Committee endorsed the proposal, while all 5 Democrats voted against it. Democrats say the plan would violate a state constitutional requirement that lawmakers draw new boundaries and also violates the Constitution's separation of powers clause. Legislative and congressional maps are currently drawn by the legislature, but under the bill, lawmakers would not be allowed to serve on the 5-member redistricting panel. Instead, the leaders of the General Assembly's 4 caucuses would each appoint 1 member, and the Chief Justice of the Indiana Supreme Court would choose a chairman. Indiana's health commissioner says a 25-cent increase in the state's cigarette tax could make some smokers quit, especially teenagers. Health Commissioner Judy Monroe and other health advocates are urging lawmakers to support the proposal by Governor Mitch Daniels. If it passes, the tax would go up 80.5 cents per pack. Administration officials say a 25-cent increase would raise between $115 million to $150 million a year in tax revenue. Daniels has not said how that money would be spent. Supporters of Governor Mitch Daniels' new highway plan claim it would spur economic growth by bringing thousands of jobs to Indiana. However, opponents say it would mean more taxes and environmental destruction. After hearing from both sides for more than 2 hours on Wednesday, members of the House Ways and Means Committee said they plan to vote on the bill next week. The governor's plan would allow the state to lease northern Indiana's toll road to a private company. The administration hopes to get at least $2 billion from the deal. That money would be used to pay for several projects around the state, and that private firm that operates the 157-mile highway would get the toll revenue. The bill would also allow the state to make the planned extension of Interstate 69 from Indianapolis to Evansville a toll road and lease it. A sailor is being held at Norfolk Naval Station in Virginia in connection with the murder of a Marine from Indiana. Investigators found the body of 23-year-old Corporal Justin Huff of Indianapolis in a wooded area just south of the Virginia-North Carolina border. Both men were attending a military intelligence training center in Virginia. Still to come on Newscenter 22, a new tape reportedly made by Osama bin Laden was aired today by the Al Jazeera News Network. And the search engine company Google is resisting federal pressure to release information on what people are Googling for. Stay with us.
The public is invited to attend Meet Your Legislators on Saturday, January the 28th at 9 a.m. in Davis Hall on the Vincennes University campus. The forum will include information from area legislators, followed by a question and answer session. Viewers can phone in their questions the day of the show to 812-888-5334 or send your email questions to wvut@vinu.edu. Our live broadcast begins at 9 a.m. and the show will be rebroadcast that same day on WVUT at 5 p.m.
The CIA has authenticated the voice on a tape played by Al Jazeera as Osama bin Laden. Bin Laden says a proposed truce to build Iraq and Afghanistan would prevent the wasting of billions of dollars on war. But the tape also says that Al-Qaeda is preparing to launch more attacks on the U.S. Bin Laden says the U.S. security measures aren't the reasons there haven't been more attacks. Instead, he says it just takes more time to prepare for them. He also says the offered truce would be a fair and long term, but no conditions were announced in the tape. It's been well over a year since the last confirmed message from bin Laden. The last tape purported to be from him was broadcast in December 2004. More videotape of the U.S. reporter kidnapped in Iraq shows her surrounded by masked gunmen. The brief footage of 28-year-old Jill Carroll was aired by Al Jazeera television today and is apparently from the same tape shown Tuesday. She appears tired and exasperated. Carroll's mother has issued an appeal to the kidnappers to set her free. Mary Beth Carroll told CNN this morning that her daughter has worked hard to show the suffering of Iraqis to the world. She says she's still in shock at the news of her daughter, but must remain strong.
I'm in shock right now, and I know that falling apart is not going to help my daughter. And I could say her father and her sister are the same way, and I think when this is resolved, we'll all fall apart. But for now, I think it gives me a lot of comfort to know that if I can stay strong, her father can stay strong, her sister and all her relatives can stay strong. This is good genetic stock, and Jill is strong too.
Jill Carroll's captors are threatening to kill her tomorrow if all female Iraqis in U.S. military custody aren't freed. The White House says it doesn't look like any Iraqi females in military custody will be released right away. At least 23 people have died in Iraq after 2 nearly simultaneous bombings in downtown Baghdad. Officials say at least 26 have been wounded in the attacks that targeted a coffee shop and a nearby restaurant. An international assessment team says there were many violations and some cases of fraud in last month's Iraqi elections, but it's not questioning the final results. Sunni leaders have denounced the voting, which is expected to show a large victory for Shiites. Islamic Jihad has phoned the Associated Press to claim responsibility for today's suicide bombings in Israel. A police commander says the single suicide bomber wounded 15 people but didn't kill anyone. Police say the bomber set off his charge in a restaurant at a crowded mall in Tel Aviv. An Israeli government spokesman says the bombing shows the utter refusal of the Palestinian Authority to take any steps to prevent terror against Israel. 2 of Iraq's neighbors are shoring up their alliance as both face growing international isolation. The leaders of Iran and Syria met today in Damascus, the first of 2 talks. Iran's president is in standoff with the West over his country's nuclear program, and UN investigators have implicated Syria in the assassination of former Lebanese prime minister. Both leaders say they will not allow foreign pressure to influence their government's affairs. Supreme Court nominee Samuel Alito faces opposition from the ranking Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee. Patrick Leahy says he won't support Alito because he has no confidence in the judge being independent of the executive branch. In future rulings, meanwhile, U.S. Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois says he also decided to vote against Alito's confirmation. Durbin is the Senate's second highest-ranking Democrat. The government wants to know what people have been Googling for. It subpoenaed Google for details on what users have tried to find through its search engine. The Bush administration says it only wants to find how often people look for porn, as it tries to revive an anti-porn law. A lawyer at Google says it will vigorously fight the subpoena. Google promises to protect personal information, but the company's privacy policy says it complicates with legal and government requests. While the question of border security continues to plague lawmakers, one Texas town continues functioning with an estimated 70% of its citizens are illegal aliens. Bill Tucker reports from Cactus, Texas.
In the north of the Texas Panhandle is a town that many might pass by on the highway and never notice. Cactus, Texas. 1 grocery store, 2 liquor stores, 6 bars, and 1 meat packing plant. Cactus is a small rural town in Texas, but it looks more like a small town in Mexico.
We're not what you would call unique. The only thing unique about our numbers is the percentage. 50% of our population is illegal aliens, minimum, 50%.
Officially, the population of Cactus is just over 2,000. Unofficially, the police chief puts the population closer to 4,500, considerably more if you count the cattle. And how does the chief know that most of his town is illegal?
They tell us when we're interviewing them, when we go out. It doesn't matter when we're visiting with them, we ask them their name, and a large percentage of them will tell us, my work name is this, my real name is this.
Their work names are taken off these IDs that are bought most often in Little Rock, Arkansas and St. Louis, Missouri, using fake Social Security numbers purchased as part of the identity package. With those documents, they gain employment at the Swift meatpacking plant. Ask the chief what he thinks of Homeland Security, and he's got a quick answer.
Homeland Security is a farce.
But Turley is also quick to add, along with the mayor, that most of the people in Cactus are hard-working people.
Well, with the illegal aliens, we don't got any, personally, I don't got any problems with them at all.
The mayor has a unique perspective on that. He once was an illegal alien who was granted amnesty in 1987. You might not suspect it to look at this community, but according to local officials, illegal aliens living here in Cactus are responsible for sending millions of dollars a year back home to Mexico and to Guatemala. There are complications. Crime is a problem because victims are reluctant to report crime.
They're wanting to be here and work, but they're wanting to stay under the radar screen, so they're willing to put up with some victimization. They're afraid of deportation.
And in Cactus, the four-man police department is underfunded and understaffed because half of the population is not officially counted as they are illegal. Normally, a town this size would have nearly twice the number of officers.
The thing is, we're overwhelmed. We have such a volume. We have so many problems going on. It's every man for himself in our department.
Bill Tucker, CNN, Cactus, Texas.
Enough is enough, say parents and advocacy groups. They want to put a stop to companies marketing junk food to kids, and they're willing to sue to get their point across. Nickelodeon TV network and cereal maker Kellogg Company are being faced with such a lawsuit. The plaintiffs are citing a recent report documenting marketing influences on what types of food children eat through various advertisements. According to the Institute of Medicine, ads aimed at kids are mostly for high-calorie, low-nutrition food and drinks. Stephen Gardner is the litigation director for the Center for Science in the Public Interest. He says the lawsuit is only aimed at the worst foods advertised.
We are asking the court to put a ceiling on just how bad the foods can be. We're suggesting moderate criteria that would still permit significant amounts of sugar in cereals, saturated fat in meals, and salt in snacks. We're only trying to get rid of the worst of the worst.
According to the Institute of Medicine, ads aimed at kids are mostly for high-calorie, low-nutrition food and drinks. A man from Akron, Ohio has been sentenced to a year in prison after an insurance fraud scandal involving a complete burial 20 feet into the ground of his vehicle. Police say 35-year-old Matthew Mueller rented a backhoe and put his 1997 BMW in the ground so he could claim it was stolen and thus get money from his insurance company. Police say if he had not blabbed to his friends, he might have gotten away with it. Still to come on Newscenter 22, it was a pretty mild day in the Wabash Valley, but what's for store Friday? Alan Schaefer will have the details when we return.
Tune in to WVUT this Thursday night. At 8, watch This Old House. At 9, stay tuned for Antiques Roadshow. Then at 10, Guns, Germs, and Steel explores of why some societies are more advanced than others. Part 1, The Crucible of Civilization, goes back in time to the end of the last ice age when society's fates turned on nutritious plants and animals that could be domesticated. Thursday night on WVUT.
What a nice spring-like day in January.
That it was, Amy. We have had some fluctuation in the weather lately, though.
Can you tell us what we can expect for the weekend?
I sure can. Good evening, everyone. Our current conditions outside is 63 degrees. Our winds are southwest at 25 miles per hour. Our humidity is at 61%, and the barometric pressure is holding steady at 29.89. As we take a look at some area temperatures, we have Carlisle at 59 degrees and cloudy skies. Decker is at cloudy skies and 62 degrees. Lawrenceville, Illinois is at 62 degrees and cloudy skies. And Bridgeport, Illinois is at 62 degrees and cloudy skies. As we take a look at some area temperatures, we have our nation's capital at 43 degrees, and it's 61 down here in Tallahassee. Out towards the west, we have Albuquerque, New Mexico at 49 degrees, and Salem, Oregon at 37. As we take a look at our frontal map, out here towards the east coast, it's rather clear. We have an area of high pressure, which is bringing mild temperatures to the southeastern United States. This area of low pressure right here will eventually push its way on into our area, bringing us a chance for rain later on tonight and tomorrow. As we take a look out towards the west, we have some areas of patchy fog and some rain showers up in Oregon and Washington. Let's take a look at your extended forecast. For tonight, cloudy and showers, a low of 49. Tomorrow, cloudy with showers and a high of 53. Tomorrow night, cloudy, showers possible, and a low of 40. For Saturday, cloudy, 45 degrees and a low of 30. Sunday, cloudy, 43 and a low of 32. For Monday, we have some rain, 37 and a low of 27. And Amy, that's a look at weather.
Thanks, Alan. Still to come on Newscenter 22, Kurt Maddox will have the latest on the NFL coaching carousel. Stay with us.
A masterpiece. You may inherit a great deal of money. Gillian Anderson leads an all-star cast in a Charles Dickens masterpiece. Bleak House, it sounds dreary to me. Don't miss the show all England is talking about.
I think we've been very fortunate. Bleak House is not so bleak after all.
Bleak House on Masterpiece Theater.
Marinelli to Motown. Good evening, everyone. For TV 22 Sports, I'm Kurt Maddox. What is it with Matt Millen and the letter M? He's hired the third head coach of his 5-year tenure as president of the Detroit Lions, giving the job to Rod Marinelli, who succeeds Marty Mornhinweg and Steve Mariucci. Marinelli spent the past 10 seasons as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive line coach. He added assistant coach to his title in 2002. This is his first ever stint as a head coach. According to several reports, Miami Dolphins offensive coordinator Scott Linehan is on track to become head coach of the Rams. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch reports the hiring in today's editions. Although a team source tells the Associated Press the move is not yet official. The signing must be approved by team majority owner George Frontiere. Hall of Fame receiver James Lofton interviewed for the Buffalo Bills coaching job today. The San Diego Chargers receivers coach is the fourth candidate to meet with the team owner Ralph Wilson and general manager Marv Levy in their search to replace Mike Mularkey, who resigned last week. Lofton spent 4 of his 16 NFL seasons playing for the Bills while Levy was coach. He also interviewed for the Oakland Raiders coaching vacancy. Seahawks coach Mike Holmgren removed all doubt yesterday. He says NFL MVP Shaun Alexander will play in Sunday's conference championship game against Carolina. The league rushing champion sustained a concussion last Saturday in the first quarter of Seattle's win over Washington. Holmgren says Alexander passed some tests they gave him and participated in Wednesday's walkthrough. Carolina defensive end Julius Peppers missed a second straight day of practice today with a shoulder injury and still is listed as questionable for the Sunday's NFC Championship game at Seattle. Peppers was injured in last week's divisional playoff win over Chicago. He's also feeling ill, so unlike Wednesday, he watched practice from the sidelines. Peppers was seen walking toward his car while the Panthers were still on the field. The NFL says Pittsburgh linebacker Joey Porter won't be fined by the NFL for criticizing officials after the Steelers beat Indianapolis. Porter repeatedly blasted the refs following the Steelers' 21-18 win over the Indianapolis Colts. Porter was angered most by Troy Polamalu's interception being reversed on replay, which allowed the Colts to score their second touchdown in a fourth-quarter rally. Reggie Bush and Vince Young are among 48 underclassmen approved today by the NFL to enter the draft. 4 of Bush's USC teammates also left school early for the NFL, including fellow running back Lindell White. The Boston Red Sox and pitcher Bronson Arroyo avoided salary arbitration by agreeing to a 3-year contract with about $12 million. The right-hander went 14-10 with a 4.51 earned run average last season. Meanwhile, St. Louis reliever Julian Tavares has finalized his 2-year, $6.7 million contract. Tavares went 2-3 with a 3.43 ERA and 4 saves for St. Louis last year. Day 5 of the Australian Open gets underway in a few hours. Among those scheduled to take the court in Melbourne are women's top seed Lindsay Davenport and men's second seed Andy Roddick. Leighton Hewitt was the biggest upset victim yesterday. The third-seeded Aussie lost to Juan Chela in 4 sets. There are just 2 games on tonight's NBA schedule. Detroit brings a league-best 31-5 record to New York to take on a reeling Knicks team that's just 13-24 following 3 straight losses. The status of Knicks forward Antonio Davis has not yet been determined. An NBA spokesman says the league is looking into last night's incident in Chicago. Davis thought his wife was in danger and rushed into the stands to protect her. Words were exchanged, but no punches thrown. Meanwhile, the Los Angeles Lakers have won 3 straight ahead of this evening's outing in Sacramento. LA's Kobe Bryant is averaging a league-high 34.3 points per game. Anthony Johnson scored a career-high 27 points to help the Pacers beat the Charlotte Bobcats 98-92 last night. The Pacers take a 2-1 lead in the season series with the Bobcats. The Pacers head to Minnesota tomorrow night. Orlando Magic forward Grant Hill will be out 7 to 10 days because of a nagging abdominal pain. Hill missed the first 19 games of the season following sports hernia surgery. He sat out 5 of the last 7 games with an abdominal pain. Hill scored 18 points in Sunday's loss at Sacramento despite playing in obvious pain. He's averaging 16.8 points in 11 games this season. Chicago Bulls general manager John Paxson has been fined $15,000 by the NBA today for verbally abusing referees after a loss to Denver. Paxson tried to confront the officials after the Nuggets beat the Bulls 97-94 Monday night in Chicago. The Nuggets attempted 41 foul shots to the Bulls' 12 in the game. Gary Claxton had 20 points and 10 rebounds, and Mike Walker's outside shooting sparked a key first-half run as Penn State defeated Purdue 74-54. Matt Kiefer and Marcus White each had 13 points to lead Purdue. In other college action, Sean Tracy hit 3 free throws in the final seconds of overtime to secure a 77-68 victory for Drake over Indiana State, and Ball State lost to Buffalo 75-64. Round 2 of the Bob Hope Chrysler Classic is underway. Pat Perez brings a 3-shot lead into play after carding a 12-under par 60 in the opening round. Perez birdied 5 straight holes in the middle of his bogey-free round on the Bermuda Dunes Country Club course. And Amy, that's a look at sports.
Thanks, Kurt. Still to come on Newscenter 22, you've heard the saying about having one foot in the grave. Well, an Oregon woman knows all too well what that's like. Stay with us.
Coming up this week on 22 Magazine, Vincennes Community School Corporation Superintendent Doug Rose talks about a $56 million building plan approved by the school board in December. And Lynn Rump, Director of Distance Education at Vincennes University, talks about VU's distance education offerings and gives us a close-up view of what an online class is all about. The next time on 22 Magazine, Saturday night at 7:30 on WVUT.
She's okay now, but for a while an Oregon woman had one foot in the grave, literally. Over the weekend, 81-year-old Clara Conley was visiting the cemetery where her husband is buried when she slipped on soggy ground. One of her legs sank knee-deep into a fresh gravesite. She was unable to free herself for almost an hour. She told the Salem Statesman Journal that people are always joking about having one foot in the grave, but in her words, I actually experienced it. That's all for this evening. For Alan Schaefer and Kurt Maddox, I'm Amy Reef. Good night.